Hi, I'm Andrew Armstrong and welcome to the Back Office Teardown Lab. If you remember in a previous video, last time I was in Detroit, I bought this Game Gear from Retro Taku, as I said, in Detroit, and it did say the item does not work, and I paid $9.95 and I want to repair it. I do have this capacitor kit from a previous purchase, and it's no instructions, no nothing, just that. And it's been sitting around, and I thought this is a prime, perfect thing to try it on. Unfortunately, my good friend Simon Locke did actually give me some SEGA Game Gear parts, including a motherboard, which he said actually does work, and I think it was already recapped. However, I put that in a bloody safe place, so safe I've no idea where it is. So I want to first get a baseline by putting some batteries in this thing, and these are brand new batteries, to just get a baseline to see if it's working, not working, if there's any sign of life, anything at all before we start working on it. Because once we open it, one, we might find that other people have tried to fix it already, and two, it might be, we might make it worse. So let's see. So I've turned it on, and nothing on the brightness going up and down. Nope. And sound, nothing. Actually, even the power light's not coming on. Interesting. Interesting indeed. And I'm going to cover the address, but thank you to Mara S. Deutsch in Southfield for kind of, I'm going to say, donating this to the cause, or donating it to Retro Taku, who then subsequently... Oh, hang on, I put a battery in totally upside down. What a moron. Let's try again. Sorry to those screaming out. Oh, the light does come on. That's a good sign. Let's wiggle the cartridge, because even on my working Game Gears, the cartridges are so fussy now that they kind of don't... Oh, what? Hang on, did you see that? The screen is doing something. When I twiddled the brightness knob right there, the screen was definitely doing something. I don't think that's related to that. Yes. Well, that means we do have our baseline now, and we do have some signs of life, even though they're not particularly happy signs. We'll just put them there. If it was a sign of death, though, nothing was happening, then I'd be more worried. But let's continue. The battery contacts are a little bit green around the gills, but not too much. It would be nice, wouldn't it, if it was just a little bit of a dirty battery contact. And I'm seeing a security screw there, so that's an unpleasant little gotcha. Thank you, Sega. Thank you, Sega of Japan, I assume. Yes, Sega of Japan. Your fault. And I don't know if there's any particular differences between the regions of this one, being a US one, but I will be able to test the cartridges between the one I've got, which I presume is a UK one, and these screws, by the way, are insanely tight. I wonder if they left the factory this tight. Hopefully not. Another reason I'm a little bit disappointed at I'm not going to say losing, but mislaying Simon's one, is that the battery door on this, one of the battery doors, has a limp catch, and I think it would have been nice to replace that with a firm catch. But you see, I put a little bit of paper in there to stop it getting stressed out. I might try to pop in a little bit of resin or Gorilla Glue, something to keep that all together, because there's nothing more that I hate, especially as somebody who grew up through the 80s, of seeing TVs and gadgets missing their doors. How many TVs did you see missing that little panel that lets you adjust the setting? Virtually all of them. It's so weird. It's so pervasive a thing that happened. I don't know why it happened. Let's count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3. Can't be 7, can it? 4, 5, 6. Yes, 6 screws, and then we've got our security screw to undo. But let me have a little think about that, because that's going to... Oh, hang on, before I do, is it the same as a Nintendo? I do have some Nintendo tools recently. No way, it is. It's the same as a Nintendo. So if you have a tool for a Super Nintendo, that works. How weird. Sega and Nintendo sharing a security bit. Right. Never opened one of these before. I'm going to be slightly careful with it. Oh, I got to cut the address label off, of course. I'm half tempted to leave it on though, even once we repair it, just because it's got, you know, a bit of history. I might try to contact that person as well. That would be funny, wouldn't it? Okay, lots of scary metalwork. And let me tell you the reason this sort of prompted this too. It's not that I just want to fix it because I've got capacitors lying around. I really want to play Game Gear, and I really want to do a McWill screen mod, and I was toying with the idea of doing it on this one because I've got an already fully working one, so I thought let's fix a kind of broken one and get that going. So that's what's prompted me on this one. But it makes sense to get it kind of going, right? Because if it doesn't work at all and you put the screen mod on then, and it still doesn't work, you've got no idea if it's the mod itself or, of course, the unit. So, I think I'm going to have to do a little bit of research first, though, because there is a massive bag of electrolytics, and I need to see what they cover. But I'm just eyeballing it. Let's disconnect this if we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Oh, there's a lot of connectors here. A lot of connectors. Because we did see there was a little bit of battery leakage, so we just see if there's anything damaged, because that could be the easy fix if there is. So I'm going to turn it around this way and we can really eyeball it up. So we've got the capacitors here in this top right corner, which I think is the power supply regulation stage here. I mean, this is a choke, electrolytic cap, 3 electrolytes. I mean, they look okay, but I'm guessing the kit will probably contain something to do those. Let's look over here. We have a surface mount capacitor. This is all to do with the sound, I suspect, because that's the volume control, that's the headphone port right there, so that's probably all sound related. Interestingly enough, that's where it gets it from the board, so this is easy enough to probe to see if there's sound, but definitely some amplifier chippery going on in here. Let's zoom back out, let's study the other part. Now I don't know what's on the other face of this, of course. Once we take that board out there might be other components. I suspect there is, because there's an awful lot of caps in that kit. These look like electrolytic caps potentially on their side in a weird packaging, so those definitely will need inspecting, that's for sure. In fact, I think they all might be caps. They're in little cans. I mean, it'd be nice to pop the lid off one for you, but we'll do that when we take them out, this little surface mount. So I'm going to undo a bunch of screws. I'm going to turn off the camera, undo a bunch of screws, and we'll lift this out. I'll let you know how I get on. I'm just going to undo the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of those little screws. Curiously though, I'm looking at these contacts. They do have these rather large pads. Answers down below to what you think these big pads are. They're pretty darn big for test pads, but they could be, who knows. Pretty sure that's all the screws out, no drama. Just going to give it a little wiggle, just in case. And yeah, it all seems to be coming away as you'd want it. Oh, there's one more screw, that's why. There's always a hidden one, a little hidden one. Now, remember I was saying those big test pad things? I think I figured out what they are. I'm pretty sure that they marry to the metallized internals of the other case and act as a ground shielding. So that's how that all works. And there you go. Absolutely no surface mount components on that side. So, which is good and bad. And there's the little fluorescent tube, in case you weren't aware of how they work. That's how it illuminates it. Wonderful. So when you put your McWill mod in, you're going to remove all of those things. And that's the metallized thing. And that little wire at the top is the speaker wire. There we go. We found it. We found it. So it's pretty standard. If you are used to taking apart Game Boys or DS's and things, all of this stuff's familiar. There's nothing much different in it. I made this, by the way, out of an old blood pressure thing, but it works super good at cleaning the dust off. Actually, you have some ingrained dust here that will need a bit more. Actually, I just blew more dust out onto it, so yeah, it's not super good. It's super bad, actually. It's terrible. Yeah, let's not use that. Probably better off just with my little thing. Ah, and that, my lint-filled cloth is worse. Luckily, this is a screen that I do plan on replacing, but it would be nice to have it working enough. Oh, we're getting it really bad. Okay, I'm back, and this was really painful. There was loads of gotchas, like you have to get this brightness knob in first, but I hadn't. I'd screwed it halfway and then go, oh no, got to do that. And then once I'd adjusted that, then I realised I'd messed up one of the keys. The keycap was squashed, so I had to take it apart. So really be careful on the assembly. I think I've counted around 18 capacitors between these two boards, and there's about the same in this bag. So I think there's one for everything here. My strategy, and I'm just putting on my soldering iron, is going to probably start with the power supply. I think if you're going to start anywhere, I think power supply. If you've got audio issues, obviously start with the audio, and then if there's anything else, then it's all of these. And I don't think you're going to necessarily want to replace only the capacitors that happen to be giving you a current fault. But I think I'd like to just work out what the root cause is rather than just changing everything and wishing for the best. Oh, crikey. Okay, we've got a screw. We've got a screw gone rogue. We're going to find it, don't worry. We're all in this together, guys. Now, is that rogue screw preventing this board from getting out? What's stopping you? Ah, okay, so there is this little piece of something. We got a little something on here. Boom. Look at that. It's got all the battery tangs on it. Ting tang. Walla walla ding dong. Okay, we got that out. Let's get that screw recovered. I had to regrind these tweezers. I broke them and I reground them, and they're reground a bit rubbish. So there's our board, and I've got my little bit of a jiffy bag there. Not that I'm trying to hide my logo. It's just a little bit less scratchy if you're dealing with screens and whatnot. So I'm going to eyeball this up. We're going to have a look here. So we have a 22 microfarad. Oops, let's put that away. A 22 microfarad here. And we have a 820 microfarad. I should write these down. Let's think about doing that, of course. Okay, 22 microfarad. We have what did I say? An 820 microfarad. Whatever this cheeky little guy is, and he looks like a 100 microfarad. That's a little U, by the way. There you go, a little U, little micro. Just gonna have a quick look in the bag. Fortunately, they're through-hole parts, so that's handy, isn't it? So there's the 820 right away. Nice. And you do find sometimes that modern electrolytics are that bit smaller, so don't be alarmed if the size is different. And we still are looking for a 22 microfarad and a 100 microfarad. So there's a 100 microfarad. And the 22 should be smaller, but you know, sometimes different brands, you're never quite sure. There's a 33. We've got a couple of red ones here. That's a 0.47. Those red ones are probably the tiny ones for something else. Yes, they are. 22 microfarad. So what we're doing, by the way, just so you know, I'm actually just reading, and I found it. I'm reading off the side of the component here, and you can see there 22 microfarad, 35 volts. And if I show you, that's the equivalent one I'm trying to replace in there, 35 volt, 22 microfarad. So it's all easy. What I suggest, and my soldering iron's on, is to replace them one at a time, and pay attention to this negative. You see there's a negative stripe on all of these, and it goes to a negative, which is the solid part of the board. And you do see there like a little plus there on some of them, plus and minus. But we know where the negative's going on that one. It's quite easy to see. So we're going to pop that out. I'm just heating it, and it just literally fell out. And worryingly, so I kind of lost which one it is. It's this one, which is the 22 microfarad, and then we have the replacement 22 microfarad. And you can see again on the nomenclature on the board, you've got the positive here, which is the long leg, and you've got this solid bit, which is representing the negative. Now, you will obviously notice that it's not going to go in. So if you have a solder sucker, now is an excellent time to start practicing with it. And I have one here. There's all sorts of tricks, by the way. You could try heating it from underneath and pushing it through, and that will work as well. But if you do have a solder sucker, it doesn't hurt to give that a little suck. What you might find, like there, where it's not clearing the hole, is just add a little bit extra there, and that'll give it something to work with, because it needs to form a little seal at the end of the day, which it's struggling to do for some reason. There we go, we've got it. I'm just going to poke that through, and you know, this is a simple technique. The through hole stuff is generally nice and simple like that, so I think we can do this board pretty quick. So I'm gonna let's bear with it. Bear with me. Let's just do this whole board real quick. See if there's any gotchas. It's the interesting little surface. It's a sort of semi-surface mount. They're not as bad as I thought they were going to be, or at least they don't appear to be. But there's different kinds of surface mount electrolytic capacitors, and I say they're not the ones I was expecting. And let's take up this bad boy, this big old bad boy here, because it's got slightly splayed pins. They've had to splay them to make sure it didn't go AWOL when they were trying to fit this. So I'm just rocking it slightly. So I'm just applying a little bit of pressure, but it's hitting into the components next to it. So I'm putting pressure now away to the edge of the board. You can see it's poked through. Don't force it too much, or you might rip out the pad and the via, and that's a whole mess of work you don't want to get involved in. And there you go. Should have paid attention to where it's positive and negative, but fortunately, again, it's marked on the board. Nothing to worry about there. So let's get this sucker cleaned. What's interesting when I look at this board, it makes me kind of think, well, could you come up with a modern version of this board? You know, put in a recharging system, so you could put in lithium cells, and I think you could. I think I might. So if you're interested in a rechargeable Game Gear and then put like a micro USB on here instead of that thing, I could be interested in making one of those. Right, let's poke that in, possibly, and that's really quite a bit smaller than there, so give it a little wiggle so it sits right down, because it's not going to want to sit exactly like the old one was. And we're just touching the solder on those. Dirty soldering iron. Turn a blind eye to the dirty soldering iron. And the last one we'll do a nice extreme close-up for that ASMR experience. Should we do that on the desoldering as well? Yeah, I know. I was going to treat you only to the soldering, but let's do the desoldering. Here we go. And that was it. So quick. Just literally just plopped out. I'm really excited about this. I feel, I don't know, my gut feeling is telling me that it's definitely not going to work. But I'm really optimistic and I really want it to work. So I'm conflicted in my emotions right now. I just think it would be really cute if it just worked. But having no prior experience to these, I really can't guarantee that. Let's chop off these legs, and we are ready to go, ready to rock and roll. As I said, don't worry, we're not going to go through all 20 capacitors one at a time. We're just doing this one because it's the through hole, and then we're going to work out our technique for the other surface mount ones. So where is our bits and pieces? You can see it's all. And I think this is the, once you got to this point though, you can actually just replace this board. There's going to be no reason to ever take it out, I suppose. It's unless we do our little upgrade that we talked about. Apart from that, that'd be interesting too, because our upgrade would be working. If we did the McWill screen mod as well, it makes me wonder what the effect would be. Oh, that knob is sided, so I've got to turn that around. Didn't like that. So if we do the McWill screen knob, which screen mod, which has a TFT screen, that's going to be self-illuminating, of course, or at least LED lit, unlike the fluorescent tubes in here, the phosphor tubes. So the battery life should be really extended, especially if we put in our rechargeable lithium cells, and we can definitely put loads in this thing. It will last for days and days and days and days and days and days. And that would be a blessed relief, because I don't know if you ever had a Game Gear back in day, but yeah, you wouldn't have enjoyed the battery life, let's put it that way. It did not compare to a Game Boy. Anything with a colour screen back then was just mind-blowingly awful on battery life. So that's that in. Let's quickly just replace all of these parts, just because, as I say, I'm eternally optimistic. And again, if this works, don't worry, we will be covering surface mount. I will still do those. I'll still do those just to show you what the technique is. And I'm saying that, remember, I have no idea what the technique is. We will work it out together. We're in this together, guys. We are the back office posse. Is that still a word? Like cowboys? Has it gone away, that? You don't use that word anymore, posse. Just checking out this alignment, by the way. There does seem to be some shieldy type stuff. Okay. Coronavirus. Just give it a nice hit. That seemed to work. And get our cartridge in. Try to put our batteries in the right way for a change. Okay, place your bets now. Place your bets now, guys. Is it going to do anything for us? Or is it a Leicester wet weekend? Oh. Yeah, still exactly the same. I'm not hearing any sound. I'm not hearing any nothing. Clearly it's not working, so that leaves us to now start dealing with these surface mount ones. So I'm just going to target one of these ones here because they look nice and big and demonstrable. So we're going to choose one of those and we're going to zoom right in so you can see them. And let's see, what's the first one? 100. 100. So I'm going to have a look through my little baggie. I'm doing that off camera. You might be able to hear me rattling away through the box. In fact, come on, watch me. Join me on the journey of looking for 100. So that's 100 microfarad right there, this one. And I'm just looking across the board. It's probably one of the few. There might be hundreds elsewhere needed. I'm just seeing if there is a 100 in a different voltage range or something like that, because you never know. I mean, if you can actually find a capacitor for each. See, this is 100 as well. So that's a 25 volt 100, which I think will be used for the sound area. This is a 6.3, and this is a 4 volt 100 on here. So this one's probably okay. Let's put that big one back in the bag. See, that's why you check. That's why you check these things. And I'm rotating this one. This is a 6.3. Ha! No, that's a 6.3 volts, 22 microfarad. So this one will be go here, for example. But let's just focus on this one now that we've got one. That looks likely enough. So the first thing to do is remove that 100, and I'm just going to make a note of this particular one. So I see this one here like that. You see it's 100, and you can see we have minus and plus on it. So I don't know if I'm writing and you can't see that. Yeah, I don't know if once we get the part off, if it's written on the silk screen of the PCB. It's slowly coming into focus, right? I'm just going to apply a little touch of solder on the legs. Oh, I heard it sizzle. Oh, it stinks. That is stinky. Oh my word. Oh, it smells fishy, you know. God. Fishy old electronics. That is a smell I do recall. I'm going to try to grab it that way. I think that, it's hard for you guys to see, but I've got the tweezers on it longitudinally, and I'm trying to progressively heat each pad. It's kicking up. It's tombstoning, which is maybe good or bad. I'm going to bend it, and you can see it is actually just a standard can. So that way now I can actually pull it up with my fingers. I'm going to turn it to the side slightly so you can see I'm just applying heat to each leg. Yes, and yes. My word. Look at that guy. Look at that guy. Oh, what a guy. Makes me wonder though, you could probably post, you see that? Post out these. If you wanted to keep this totally original, you might be able to pull out the existing can. Oh, it all disintegrated once I'd done that. So yeah, don't do that. Don't worry about it. Okay. So remember now, we have our negative and our positive legs on this, and looking at the board, it does have a little positive symbol, so that's good. So if you do get lost, it is there to guide you. What I think I'm going to do is just, you see I'm just touching up the pads with some fresh solder. If you have some solder braid, it might be a good time to give that a bit of a clean. I'll show you that happening actually. I do have a little bit of solder braid here. I'm just going to trim off the funky end and see if we can convince this to wick into our braid, which we can. Let's take off the other pad's worth as well. Ouch, that's hot. I've got my soldering iron set to 360 degrees. That's probably why it's so hot. And I'm just going to do again, tap here, some fresh. We've got fresh, and this is unleaded solder. Just because we are funky and youthful, and we don't have things with lead in anymore. So we want to fit this in. We want to fit this in there. Again, don't worry about the polarity at the moment. I'm not going to solder it down. I'm just sizing it up. It might be a good opportunity if you have the appropriate tweezers to adjust the legs a little bit. So what I suggest we do is that we're going to bend them this away and then bend them that away. Don't bend too hard because you don't want to damage the cap, but you can see we're creating a little dog leg in it. Yeah, so that should make it a bit easier. And I'm just going to go for broke, and I'm just going to trim them. And we don't want them that way. Oh my word, that's lucky I didn't cut that. Well, we actually need to fit this way, so I've bent them the wrong way. Now I'm a bit scared of bending them up because it might snap, so I'm just going to continue to bend them. And I'm going to create that dog leg again. So yeah, just do as I say, don't do as I do. Oh, that looks so cool though. I've made it into a sled. We're sledding this, sledding action. So cut that off, get him ready to go. Boom, boom, shake, shake, shake the room, as the Fresh Prince would say. Oh my word. I've got to get my tweezers sorted. These are ruined. All you guys with your tweezers, I hope you, once you find that pair of tweezers you love, look after it. And it will look after you. It's like one of those wisdom-y things. The electronics guru. Look at that. Look at that bad boy. He's sitting nice, sitting proud. In fact, I like that double dog leg thing. Look, because it acts as a kind of a spring shock absorber on that one. Now, I'm not going to power it up and test if that is the case. I'm going to go through now and replace all the rest. And then we'll power it up. I'd like you to take a moment to feast your eyes on this, or as Alan Sugar would say, take a mug's eyeful. Actually, I seem to have forgotten one, and you'll see if we'll find that momentarily. But just to show you, this is what it looks like when it's done. And these are the last few I did, so they're starting to look really quite neat. And they get slightly less neat as you see me kind of experimenting with the technique. So I expect you to do much the same. Fortunately, there is one more here, so you do get to see the technique that I have devised. So I'm just going to find that one. That's a 6.3 volt 100 microfarad, and going to root around through the book. Oh my word, what is going on with my vocabulary today? So a 6.3 volt 100. Sorry I went quiet there for a moment. I was just really focusing. So what I do, now this is, pay attention. If you see the negative side, always point down. They are always mounted so that the negative is to the right. Okay, so that really saves you a lot of time. And then take your doodads and bend them that way. To be honest, you can bend it really close. I've kind of cocked up a bit on this one, so it's not quite perfect, but it doesn't matter. And you've got loads of room in most cases, so let's trim the legs, and you can see we're going to be replacing that one, but this one now will sit pretty much exactly as you want it when you're done. So that's going to be like that. Now that one is an awkward one, actually. That seems to be the most awkward one, so we've chosen a good one to actually try with this. I might do a little different technique where I'm actually going to bend this up gently, not so much that it rips the pads out, because I'm going to get in from behind, because there's no way of getting in there with that transformer in the way. Boom! Shakalak! Look at that. That wasn't a problem at all. I'm then hitting them. I'm pretty much touching it with the solder. Again, remember, we're talking through the technique here. They almost seem to be either gunked up, which I think they are leaking. I think that's why they're so grizzly underneath a lot of these. So I'm going to pull this. This, by the way, is a really good solder braid. So yeah, solder wick rosin. I think it's already got some flux on it. That's why it's so good. It conducts the heat wonderfully, and it does a good job. I've got so much terrible solder braids. I'm happy to be evangelic about a brand that actually seems to work, and hopefully I'll remember to buy that brand when I do it again. So I've got now the new component ready to go. I'm just loading it up in my hands. There you go, load it up like that. And you can see the legs really need to be splayed a tiny bit more because they're not quite right. So I'm just going to dink them out a little bit. It's better to dink them out in the air if you can, because otherwise you're going to solder one and then try to bend the other, and it's going to put stress on it, on the pads, and you just don't want a pad to rip off. It's just hassle. It's going to be so much hassle, especially in this position, because you can see now it's really hard to get into that inner one. You've got no idea where its PCB traces are going, and there you go. It's that easy to do that. Okay, so we're going to have a go putting it back together again because I can't resist. But I just want to show you the audio board's interesting because it does have the other surface mount caps that I said are scary. In fact, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just counting here actually. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 of these caps left, so I'm a little bit worried. But let's pop it all back together and worry about this if we need to. Okay, not quite what we wanted. So these are the more traditional surface mount that I was expecting, and they do have, again, positive and negative, a slightly different layout, but we should be able to make it fit. So we're going to attack these big ones. We know they're all 100, so we can just focus on removing them all and not worrying about the particular values, because we know we're going to have to change those. I'm kind of bit disappointed. I have to admit, I am disappointed that we didn't get any more joy out of this. So I'm a little bit worried. Ow, 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 ow. But that's okay. There's a lot of great guys in this community who can help with this. I'm just going to try something, by the way. It's a bit of a pain. I'm just going to see if you can go in with side cutters. Yeah, that might be the simplest technique. So I'm just going in with side cutters very gently and seeing if I can cut the legs, if I can't just lever them off nicely. They don't really want to go. Again, I've always disliked these. So you see, I'm just pulling them at an angle and then pulling them the other way. I mean, that's valid. But if you can get side cutters on components like this, I'd say just go for it, because you're not trying to save the component anyway. Then just remove the legs when you clean up. So we have a couple more, and again, this is smelling super fishy. I don't know if that's just the flux they used back then, or if it's a sign of these being a bit on the leaky side or on their way out. And again, putting my nail in there and just levering it up like that so we can get that underneath. And this one's right next to that pin header, so just try not to melt the plastic. I kissed it a little bit, but it's okay. And we're going to just get rid of this last little baby one. Which kind of reminded me, do you remember when you were a kid and you watched Jaws? Do you remember like the sequels? They always saying, oh, it's Jaws' mum. I always thought that was hilarious, like as if it's Jaws' mum, and she is really annoyed that her son, assuming it's male, you know, was attacked and whatnot, and is back for revenge. I don't know if sharks take revenge. I'll need to be quite gentle here because C7, the positive here, you can see, turn it at an angle perhaps, the pad is lifted, so that's not good. We want to avoid that in general, but it doesn't look like something that will be too hard to replace if we have to. We just don't want to have to repair it. You can see there it follows through from here. But let's clean up the other ones. Exactly the same process, but now we know those pads are a little bit gentle. Hence that rocking procedure. Remember I was saying, if you can cut instead of rocking, your board won't come a knocking. How? Smoking hot. I'm just going to trim my braid. Just roll your tip. How. And I think this is the one we potentially cut a leg on. SEGA! I'm really looking forward to firing up Mickey Mouse Castle of Illusion. Such a good port. By the way, I was playing Space Harrier 2 on the Sega Mega Drive and it was crap. I've never been more disappointed in a game than that. That was terrible. Space Harrier 2 on the Sega Mega Drive. Avoid it. Just going to tin the pads. And in that case, tinning the piece of foil that's folded up. I'm hoping that if we mount these components vertically, there'll be enough clearance, but it might not happen. So we're going to go with the 100 microfarads, and remember, positive, negative, and you have long leg positive. Really a case of just bending the legs like that, and you can see where they need to go. I'm going to try doing some left hand side cutter action for you so you can see it on the camera, but I'm going to guess it's somewhere there-ish. It's just like potluck, and I'm just going to take it. I'm going to take it off the camera. You don't need to see that cut. That's gonna do good, right in there. And pay a lot of attention again to that negative part, the negative up in this case. Probably ought to have fit that little tinker in there, but let's worry about this one. You don't have to focus on the bad. Focus on the good. Is my soldering iron off? Ah. Yeah, sometimes it's best, I think, go in with the phalanges. I know it's going to be hard for you guys to see, but you can imagine what I'm doing at this point. You really can. You should. You can see that's the end result. Not rocket science. You use your imagination of what that looked like, and then I just tack the end, and I'm going to go back again because I like to double check, and that's fine. That's looking cute, isn't it? Woohoo! Now let's try one of these slippy smally guys, because we have this here, and we know that we've got a problem with that. I'm kind of half. Let's see, if we bend this out and put that there, you can see, I think it gives us just enough. Otherwise, an option would be to actually mount this flat. You could just mount it flat at an angle. We could try that. Should we try that for a change? Why don't we? It just has to electrically make contact and not short. So you can imagine you're going to put it just like so. And I think, yeah, let's go for it. Why not? Do 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 do. Solder your Game Gear. He really messed that up. Do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. Oh, I don't know. Let's just cut it. We'll make it fit. It's fine. Stop messing with it. Stop playing with that thing. Just get on with it. I'm going to turn it that way. We're going to turn this way. We're going in for the kill. It's going to be a rather nice thrill. Woohoo. Okay. Look at that bad boy. That bad boy is coming to town. He's going to town on your face. He's pummeling your face in a pugilistic rage. Allegedly. Let's just get that in there. Now, I have a sneaky suspicion, by the way, that this is not going to fix my problem. Because I don't think we had an audio related problem in that we didn't have any audio at all. So I'm not sure what's the likelihood as a fix, but it's, you know, belt and braces and all that. There we go. That flowed nice, didn't it? Did you see that flow? Check out my flow. Oh, check out my flow. We're in like Feline. Look at this. If this doesn't work, I feel I'm going to have to resort to extreme measures. Extreme measures being actually working out what the voltages on these boards are supposed to be and actually debugging this properly. Whether you want to do that, that's up to you. You decide. Oh yeah, by the way, I did move this component from the vertical position because I thought it was going to hit the shield, which it will. But I also noticed now that the shield itself may well short out. So if you've got a little bit of insulation tape, which I do, I would advise cutting off a little sliver of it. Yep. Like so. I'm just putting it away. I'm being very neat today. And I'm just going to, I don't want to turn this around because I've got screws in it. I'm just going to add a little insulated area. Look at that. Isn't that nice? So it won't come a cropper. I'm not even sure it would short, but it definitely will not now. Yeah, I love how bent up it is, like it definitely doesn't want to sit down. I'm going to show it to you, the angle of that. Whether or not it makes a difference and prevents this from fitting in the enclosure, I have no idea, but let's hope it doesn't. Yeah, I think we can work with that. We can work with that. That's fine. It will contort itself appropriately. Let's put it back together now. My bad. I actually did find where these two other capacitors are here on the board, so I'm just going to pop these on in exactly the same way. Although they don't have the positive and negative written on the component itself, it's clearly written on the PCB. Just whip those out and put these little red bad boys in instead. Decided to put it all together because frankly at this point there's nothing more I can do, and at the end of the day, guys, think about it, I've actually shown you how to recap it. I didn't promise at the beginning of this video that this would be working by the end, but I can assure you all of the caps are appropriately and properly recapped. And if you disagree, please feel free to comment down below, but you better back up your arguments with some proper fact, because this is what we deal with here in the back office. We deal with fact, not conjecture, not theorems. Right, let's plug that in there. That's it, you always got to rub the batteries around a bit. Gives them a good bit more grip or something. I don't know why we do it. We always do. That battery door sits so good. This one is that loose one. Oh, it's a delicate flower. Let's pop pop that in like that. Boom. Now, let's see. Hey-oh! Okay, that wasn't great, but I think that's as good as you get actually on the screens. Yes. So let's try the volume. I don't know what the volume fix would do. What would you? Sounds good to me though. It certainly sounds better than it looks, but I think this is par for the course on these. I mean, just me tilting it to look at it means you don't get to see it. It's definitely a candidate. I think this might be worse than the other Game Gear I've got, but so much for this item does not work. This item does work now, and that does mean we have a really good candidate for a quill screen because it's been fully recapped and ready to go. So I hope that's been of some use to you, and if you've got a Game Gear that you might be able to get some life out of it. If you're ever in Detroit, go visit Retro Taku and say Andrew at the back office, Dr. A says hi, because I do like to pick up all my broken stuff from them and fix it, so you will be seeing. Oh, sorry, I'm starting to play again. I'm really excited about this. Gonna give a little play of this tonight in bed. Please join me on my Discord. If you feel like buying me a coffee, consider joining my Patreon. Links are all down below. And as ever, thank you for watching.